Hello, this is Melanie Gorelnik, and for the next hour, I'll be reading from the August 11th issue of the Toronto Sun on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The first story is Netflix brings Love is Blind to Canada with casting now open by Anne Bacani. Netflix is bringing Love is Blind to Canada, and Canadian singles now have a chance to prove whether love really can survive without the whole seeing each other first part. Casting is officially open for the Canadian version of the hit dating series. Singles looking for love can apply now, and if chosen, will enter the infamous pods, where they'll date and form connections without ever seeing the person on the other side of the wall. Sound ridiculous? That's also kind of the point. The original Love is Blind premiered on February 14th, 2020, and quickly became a global hit. The concept is simple. Singles meet, date, and fall for each other based entirely on emotional connections before ever coming face to face. If they get engaged, they finally meet and then move in together, plan a wedding, and see whether their real-world relationship can live up to the connection they built in the pods. Eventually, there's a wedding day, and that's when things get really interesting. Will the couples actually say I do, or will physical attraction, family pressure, and all the messy realities of life get in the way? Now it's Canada's turn. The US series has already spawned international versions in Japan, Brazil, Sweden, the UK, Mexico, United Arab Emirates, Germany, Argentina, Italy, and France. Now Canada gets its turn. Love is Blind has transformed how people fall in love all over the world. Now it's Canada's turn to bring the romance, drama, and a whole new set of unforgettable love stories, said Danielle Woodrow and Tara Woodbury, directors of content for Netflix Canada. Erin Brock, co-chief content creator and executive vice president at Insight Productions, said she's one of the gazillion day one diehards of the show and is excited to see what a Canadian cast brings to the format. The Canadian series will be produced by Toronto-based Insight Productions, with Brock, Jessica Brenton, and John Brenton serving as executive producers. The company is also behind shows including Canada Shore, Big Brother Canada, and The Amazing Race Canada, according to DH National. Canada Shore debuted January 22 on Paramount Plus, and follows a group of 19 to 26-year-olds from across the country. Jersey Shore icon Nicole Snooki Polizzi appears as a guest mentor, helping promote the show's gym, tan, laundry lifestyle alongside host and Big Brother Canada Season 7 winner Dane Rupert. That story was Netflix brings Love is Blind to Canada with casting now open by Anne Bacani. The next story is Highest Priority Search Now Underway for Missing Toronto Woman Anne by Joe Warmington. Her name is Anne, and there is an ongoing police search for her right now in Scarborough. Toronto police say they investigate approximately 4,300 missing person cases per year, which means more than 10 people a day are reported missing. But there is nothing routine about it. For families, it is not a statistic. It's a crisis. Toronto police say that Anne, 63, was last seen on August 8 at approximately 12 p.m. in the area of Victoria Park Avenue and Eglinton Avenue East. She's described as 5'7", has a slim build and shoulder-length blonde hair, wearing a white top, black pants, reading glasses, and brown running shoes. They add that Anne speaks with a Scottish brogue and may appear to be confused. Level 1 search. There are several other missing people posted to the Toronto Police Operations X account on Tuesday morning, But what makes Anne stand out is her case has been upgraded to a level 1 search. We are canvassing for video, Inspector Jonathan Rose told reporters Tuesday morning, adding they are appealing to the public for any dashcam footage or any video of the area so we can review that. We saw this in the case of 14-year-old teenager Esther this spring as well. The level 1 search allows for more tools to be employed and gets more eyes on the case. But the upgrades do not necessarily mean the situation is dire or a crime has been committed. It reflects the extreme concern for the missing person's safety, but does not automatically mean foul play or criminality, said TPS Constable Cinderella Chung. She explains, quote, "An upgrade to the search allows us to use many specialized resources such as canine units, mounted units, drones, etc., in addition to resources already deployed. This is happening in the case of Anne. While no one ever wants to get ahead of a missing persons investigation, in most cases, the people reported missing are eventually found alive. But until they are, it's a stressful time. If you see Anne now or saw her in the Eglinton Avenue East and Victoria Park Avenue area on Saturday, please don't hesitate to contact police who have dedicated a lot of time to this search. And if you find something on your car's dash cam, police would be interested in seeing it. Any information is good information." With so many cameras out there today, there is often something that will show up that will help. In the case of Esther, there were multiple sightings that showed she was still out there and offered clues of what direction she may have traveled. Police eventually located her in the basement apartment of a house in Rexdale and made a dramatic effort to storm the property, take her into protective custody, and get her to hospital. They also arrested a man on the scene. It was later determined there was no criminality in this event, but there was no way they could know that in the moment. Once she was found, it became very difficult to find any more information about the case. The man she was with was not charged and has not commented. You never know what is going on with a missing persons case. When it's a child who left a home and began to wander, you hope there is someone who will see that and call for help. When it's an older person with medical issues, it's hard to determine just what is going on with them. But in this current case, there are plenty of pictures and a good description. Hopefully, Anne is found safe, and there is an explanation for her disappearance, and that this upgraded to level 1 search protocol will result in locating her safely. There are several pictures of Anne as she was caught on video from some kind of camera walking outside, and her hair is a blondish gray color, and she looks her age. In one picture, she's kind of smiling and her front teeth are not super straight, if that's helpful, and she's of a slender build. Photos courtesy of Toronto Police. That story was Highest Priority Search Now Underway for Missing Toronto Woman Anne by Joe Warmington. The next story is Golfer Quits Country Club as Hole-in-One Cheating Scandal Goes Viral by Dan Balicki. There's an old saying in sports that goes, "If you ain't cheating, you ain't trying." But one amateur golfer took it too far and is now facing the consequences. Zach Holland, a former collegiate golf player, has resigned in disgrace from Winghaven Country Club after security footage revealed that he had faked a hole-in-one during a members-only event. Holland, who is a 2-handicap amateur golfer, admitted to cheating at the O'Fallon, Missouri course after the incident went viral on social media. How did Holland cheat? Before the tournament, which featured a hole-in-one prize pot, began, Holland learned that his group would be the first to reach the par 3 fourth hole. He then lied to his playing partners, telling them he was expecting a phone call because he had a grandparent in the hospital. He said he would run ahead and hit his tee shot on the fourth alone in order to keep up the pace of the play. What the group didn't know was that Holland had shown up before the round began, parked his car by a shed near the fourth green, and then went out, made a divot mark, and placed his ball in the hole. During the round at the fourth hole, Holland faked taking his tee shot while no one was around. He then told his partners that he had, quote, thinned it, and didn't see where it went, but that there would be a divot on the green. Once the group reached the green, they discovered Holland's ball in the hole and celebrated. However, once word traveled around the club, several members asked the superintendent to check security footage to see if the hole-in-one was legit. That's when it was revealed what had happened, and Holland faced the wrath of the club's membership and the golf community. What did Holland say about the incident? Holland spoke about the incident during a radio interview on the Morning After Show on 101 ESPN in St. Louis, and admitted his wrongdoing, expressing deep regret for his actions. Quote, "You do something as dumb as I did, there are consequences for that," said Holland, who competed for William Carey University in college. "There's no excuse for what I did, and I was completely in the wrong," he added. "There's really no motivation, just complete stupidity. And we were giving 2 shots back to the field, and that's not an excuse. There's no excuse for what happened." Holland added that his biggest worry is for his family. He has a wife and 2 children, who also face online hate after the scandal. "I made a terrible mistake," Holland said. "The lack of moral character. I can take the banter and the chatter and the heat, because I deserve that from a golf perspective. What I am worried most about is my family. It's not fair to them for me to put them in that situation where when they walk in a room, there is a stigma there that your dad is a cheater. So questions that they may get asked or be asked down the road, that's the worst part. The golf is secondary." There is a link to a video on X that shows Zach Holland, the cheating golfer, as he was doing a putt later on in the tournament, and he's surrounded by all these men who cheer when he shoots it into the hole, and they're all cheering and they're high-fiving him, and he's this very kind of overweight guy wearing way too tight clothes, and he is just sucking in all this attention in this video. Video courtesy of TW Legion, which is on X. That story was Golfer Quits Country Club as Hole-in-One Cheating Scandal Goes Viral, by Dan Balicki. The next story is CNE adding more attractions, 8 bars, live art, and music, by Danette Wilford. The Canadian National Exhibition is about to become even more exceptional. See what we did there? Thanks to Art Meeting Craft Beverages, along with the new Immersive Space exhibit, and a high diving show that will send the fair to new heights this year. Collective Arts, known for its signature blend of craft beverages and work with emerging artists, will serve as the official beer and cocktail partner of this year's X, or EX. Their larger and ready-to-drink cocktails will be available across 8 bars throughout the grounds. Piece de Resistance. Visitors can also expect to see a 40-foot shipping container transformed into a live art installation, where artists Bruno Smokey and Shellac will leave live spray painting workshops that will serve as an evolving piece of art throughout the exhibition's 18 days. Quote, "The CNE is one of Canada's most beloved end-of-summer traditions, and we're excited to bring our own creative take to this year's exhibition as the official beer and cocktail partner," Matt Johnston, CEO and co-founder of Collective Arts, said in a press release. We're celebrating the things that inspire us, refreshing craft beverages, live art and music, and giving CNE visitors a chance to engage with the creativity behind our brand. 3 limited edition CNE-inspired designs for its flagship collective lager, created by Toronto artist Tim Singleton, will also be available. For me, the CNE has always been a vibrant, colorful, and indulgent toast to everything I love about summer in Toronto. I wanted these designs to capture the exciting, dynamic, and magical energy that going to the CNE has always filled me with, Singleton said. By combining a Technicolor palette with iconic CNE locations and signifiers, I created 3 distinct pieces that evoke this truly legendary Canadian institution. Other new attractions. New on tap for the exhibition is the CNE Space Experience, where visitors can learn more about Canada's vital role in the Artemis II mission, the future of space exploration, and step into the life of an astronaut. Presented in collaboration with the Canadian Space Agency and funded by the Ontario government, Canada's largest immersive space exhibit also features extraordinary images from one of the most significant chapters in modern space exploration. Space-themed games have also been added to the CNE Gaming Garage. The Big Dip High Dive Show is set to make a huge splash as a team of elite performers go even higher, climbing platform heights up to 80 feet, and plummet into a 40,000-gallon pool. The attraction gets even more daring at night, when the divers are engulfed in flames before their heart-pounding plunges. Also new is the NXNE stage, where the CNE and North by Northeast, or NXNE, have partnered to bring the next wave of music stars to Canada's largest fair, while the kids will get their own fun with an immersive enchanted forest and can dance along to the K-pop tribute Cirque show. Some returning favorites include the ice skating and acrobatics show with 7-time Canadian champion Elvis Tizoko, the beloved Superdogs, and, of course, the 77th edition of the Canadian International Air Show featuring the CNE debut of the Pink Jet and the Jackaces Aerobatic Formations team. It's the iconic Canadian Armed Forces Snowbirds' final performance before the Sky Show's years-long hiatus. The 2026 CNE kicks off on August 21 through September 7th. There is a picture of, it's just called the Pink Jet, and it is really hot pink in color. It's got the breast cancer black ribbon featured on each of the wings and on the tail, and it also says across the side, Pink Strong. And it's also, what is it doing? It's got the pink smoke coming out too. It's very, very cool. There is no photo credit given. There is also a picture of the CNE Space Experience, and it's an exhibit where you get to feel like you're an astronaut. And so it looks like you're inside, looking out from some kind of a spacecraft, and the window behind it, you could see the Earth from space. It looks very real, and there's a man and his young daughter that are looking out at the Earth. It's really cool. And the last picture shows 5 divers taking a plunge in the Big Dip High Dive Show. And so it's directly overhead this pool, which looks not that big, and it's surrounded by people that are sitting or standing in grass, and there are 5 men that have their arms splayed out, and they are horizontal to the pool as they're diving. I'm sure they're going to go vertical at some point as they get to the water. Let's see. Photo presented by Pizza Pizza. That story was CNE adding more attractions, 8 bars, live art, and music by Danette Wilford. The next story, is former Raptors boss Nick Nurse suing the Ontario government for $697,000 by Gordon Anderson. When former Raptors head coach Nick Nurse left the squad for the Philadelphia Sixers in 2023, the government of Ontario slapped him with a near $700,000 parting gift. The Ministry of Finance rejected Nurse's application for a rebate of the $697,500 non-resident speculation tax, or NRST, that he and his wife had previously paid on their $4.65 million Mississauga home. The NRST is a 25% tax applied to the purchase of a residential property by a foreign national. A foreign national is defined as an individual who is not a citizen or permanent resident. After extending an olive branch to the province for the last couple of years, Nurse and his wife are taking the province to court for the money. It's been quite frustrating for them, Mike Collingy told the National Post. The ministry, at the administrative level, is yet to really articulate a reasonable basis for their position. Collingy is a Toronto-based partner at Deloitte Legal Canada LLP and is acting on behalf of the Nurses. Nurse and his wife bought their Mississauga home in October of 2021, paying the $697,000 NRST tax levy on top of the $4.65 million purchase price. When the couple bought the home, the NRST levy was 15% in the Greater Golden Horseshoe region. Since then, the rate has increased to its current 25%. Requirement not met. Finance regulations at the time allowed foreign buyers to claim a rebate of their NRST, provided they were in good standing with the rules. Namely, the property was their principal residence for at least 60 days, and Nurse had worked in Ontario for at least a year. Nurse was fired by the Raptors on April 21, 2023. The 76ers hired Nurse on May 29th. He has been with Philadelphia ever since. After selling the property in September 2023, the couple applied for their rebate in March 2024, only to have it rejected a month later. Ontario's Ministry of Finance said that the Nurses did not qualify because they did not live in the house up to the date when they applied for the rebate. Quote, "I think it's a case where they changed the law after Mr. Nurse made his rebate application, and then they're reading a requirement into the law retroactively when the legislation itself was not retroactive," Collingy says. There is an undated picture of former Toronto Raptors head coach Nick Nurse. He's at a press conference and he's leaning on a table. He's wearing a gray polo shirt. Behind him, there's like a gray background that says the word center with an E at the end. And then I think there's like an owl. Anyway, he's got short brownish, reddish, blondish, grayish hair and brown eyes and a very short mustache and beard. And he's looking off to the side like he's listening to maybe a question. And yeah, he looks maybe 45, I guess. Photo courtesy of Jack Bolland via the Toronto Sun via Postmedia Network. That story was former Raptors boss Nick Nurse suing the Ontario government for $697,000 by Gordon Anderson. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Toronto Sun on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The next story is local jeweler accused of ties to Ryan Wedding won't fight extradition by Brian Towie. A local jeweler accused of helping launder millions of dollars for a drug trafficking ring, allegedly led by a Canadian Olympian, won't fight his extradition to the U.S. Roland Sokolovsky was in court on Tuesday when he consented to being extradited to the U.S., his lawyer told the media. The Federal Minister of Justice will now issue a formal surrender order with Sokolovsky, turned over to the U.S. authorities within 45 days of issuing the order. Sokolovsky's lawyer Scott Fenton told CTV that a consent to extradition is neither an admission of guilt nor an indication of the strength of the case against him. He added that Sokolovsky intends to contest the charges in a California court. Accusations. The U.S. Department of Justice said that Sokolovsky allegedly served as a de facto bank for Canadian Ryan Wedding, an Olympic snowboarder and accused cocaine kingpin. Prosecutors alleged that he moved drug money for Wedding and acquired luxury goods, including a rare $13 million Mercedes CLK GTR Roadster. A former poker shark, Sokolovsky, 38, was arrested in Toronto in November as part of the FBI and RCMP's joint operation to dismantle Wedding's alleged drug ring. Sokolovsky was denied bail and had been held in Maplehurst Correctional Complex in Milton. Court documents said that Sokolovsky, who used such aliases as Sushi and Apple Pie, is accused of using crypto platforms and his Toronto jewelry business Diamond Czar to allegedly launder Wedding's drug money. Prosecutors said he also designed a necklace for Atna Ona, a Montreal-based gang leader, allegedly as a reward for his role in the murder of an FBI witness. Sokolovsky faces conspiracy charges related to drug trafficking and money laundering in the U.S. District Court in Los Angeles. Key players. Since 2004, the DOJ has indicted at least 34 people in connection with Wedding's alleged drug trafficking ring, which authorities claim moved tons of cocaine and fentanyl across the continent and killed dozens of people. Wedding himself was captured in January while on the lam in Mexico and was transferred to California. He currently is in U.S. custody, but his current whereabouts are not publicly known. A third man, Gursawak Singh Bal, was also arrested last fall as part of Operation Giant Slalom and faces an extradition hearing on December 10th. A crime blogger, Singh Bal ran The Dirty News, a site that U.S. authorities said was allegedly used to coordinate the assassination of Quebec-born FBI witness Jonathan Acevedo Garcia, who was shot in the head while having lunch in Medellin, Colombia. Deepak Paradakar, another allegedly high-level player, is said by U.S. prosecutors to have accepted cash drops and a high-end watch to serve as a fixer for Wedding's drug ring. He's out on bail after a failed bid to overturn his release, denies any wrongdoing, and continues to fight extradition. Wedding is scheduled to stand trial twice later this year for two separate indictments. The first of two trials is scheduled to start on October 7th. There is a picture of Ryan Wedding as he is in the custody of FBI agents. He is exiting a white plane, and there are 3 FBI agents around him. His hands are cuffed in front of him. He's wearing a ball cap, a black puffy vest, and jeans. He's got a thick beard that's kind of reddish colored, and he's just kind of looking off into space, and the FBI people have their arms behind his back to help him walk down the stairs from the plane. Photo courtesy of the FBI. That story was local jeweler accused of ties to Ryan Wedding won't fight extradition, by Brian Toey. The next story is Blue Jays' Trey Yasovich has knee surgery, could return this season, by Frank Zigarelli. The door has been left ajar for Blue Jays starter Trey Yasovich to pitch again this season, which seemed like a non-starter, knowing he faced the possibility of undergoing surgery on his injured left knee. Turns out the right-hander went under the knife to address this meniscus he hurt in Houston last week while warming up for the 3rd inning. an MRI revealed the injury, prompting a visit to a Texas-based specialist. The Jays are not ruling Yesavage out for the balance of the season, but at the same time, there's no official timeline on a possible return. The generic week-to-week time frame was provided in the hours leading up to Tuesday's game against the visiting Boston Red Sox. Much like a day-to-day designation, the terms are so generic that it's anyone's guess if and when Yesavage will be back at a big league mound this season. Yesavage, 23, has posted a 3.65 ERA in 93.2 innings this season. Jays hope to stay in the postseason picture. In a few weeks, there's the real possibility the Jays will be out of the wild card race or trailing to the point where it makes absolutely no sense to risk Yesavage. As a right-hander, Yesavage's left knee represents his lead leg, an absolute necessity in the delivery because it promotes a strong base. For now, the focus remains on Yesavage's rehab. In time, perhaps his knee strengthens to the point where the process of ramping up begins in earnest. The good news, by far, is that surgery does not mean a complete shutdown of the season. Either way, Yesavage will pitch again. The unknown question is whether the Jays remain relevant that will allow Yesavage to return to the mound against big league hitters. Sensational outings in 2025. Yesavage's MLB debut in 2025 was an example how someone could go from the lowest level in the minors to baseball's ultimate stage, the World Series. He became a revelation and an instant factor when the playoffs began. His start to the 2026 season was curtailed when he began the year on the IL with a shoulder impingement, one of many setbacks Toronto's starting rotation had to endure. This season-long theme continued in Monday's series opener when Jameson Taillon was forced to exit his start after 4 scoreless innings. On the same day the Yesavage news broke, the Jays announced they had placed the right-hander Taillon on the 15-day IL with right forearm tendinitis. The irony to all these setbacks is that back in spring training, the thought was the Jays had too much starting pitching. And as early as last week, when the club was in Houston, talk was the Jays were eyeing a 6-man rotation. While he hasn't pitched for the Jays, recent acquisition Spencer Arrighetti is dealing with a nerve issue in his foot. In theory, the Jays would have had the luxury of 7 starters. As of Tuesday, the club has 4 in Dylan Cease, Jose Soriano, Max Scherzer, and Shane Bieber. Soriano was acquired on trade deadline day from the LA Angels, but all 3 of the Jays' incumbent starters have been spending time on the IL this season. Not quite like last year. The Jays currently hold a 57-63 record and sit in 5th in the AL East, 16 games back from division leader Tampa Bay and 3.5 games back from a wild card spot. Mathematically, the playoffs are still possible, but it's a steep uphill battle this late in the season. There is an undated picture of Blue Jays' Trey Yesavage. He is at a press conference. The background says World Series in white against a blue background. And Trey is wearing a blue shirt, a t-shirt that says World Series on the front. He's got on a blue and white Blue Jays cap. And he is smiling and speaking into a microphone. He's got really wide-set eyes that are brown, and he has a very tidy beard and mustache. Photo courtesy of Jack Boland via the Toronto Sun. That story was Blue Jays' Trey Yesavage has knee surgery. Could return this season. By Frank Ziccarelli. The next story is polite Toronto bank robber admits to holding up 5 banks in 10 days. By Michelle Mandel. He was a prolific and rather polite armed bank robber, but not a very smart one. In the span of 10 days at the end of December 2024, court heard that Jeffrey Laviolette, 36, armed himself with a knife and demanded either $2,000 or $3,000 from the terrified tellers behind the wicket at 5 different Toronto banks. But he was always captured on surveillance cameras, never wore a mask, donned the same clothes to each robbery, which was light khaki pants, gray tuck and black jacket, or is it toque? Not sure. And used the same getaway car for 2 of the heists, a red Mazda sedan registered in his name. And despite his big asks, court heard that all he made off with was $2,350. From a video room at Maplehurst Correctional Complex, the apologetic Laviolette pleaded guilty to 2 bank robberies and admitted to the facts involved in all 5 heists, which will be argued as aggravating factors at his sentencing in the fall. According to the agreed facts read in court by Assistant Crown Attorney Jamie Buckland Foster, Laviolette entered the Scotia Bank at 2251 Islington Avenue on the morning of December 20th, 2024. "Give me $2,000, he told the teller. She didn't appear to understand what was happening until he showed her the knife sticking out of his sleeve. "I'm not here to hurt anybody," he said. "I'm not here to hurt you. I just want $2,000. Court heard that the female teller put $250 into a clear bag. When he complained, she told him it was all she could provide. So he took it and was seen fleeing in his red Mazda. The next day, court heard, Laviolette calmly told a male teller at an RBC branch on Wicksteed Avenue that he wanted to withdraw $3,000. When asked for his bank card, he flashed the folding knife in his pocket instead. He accepted the $600 he was given and took off. On December 23rd, court heard that Laviolette again showed his knife sticking out of his left sleeve of his jacket and demanded $3,000 from a male teller at a BMO on Laird Drive. The teller told Laviolette that he could only give him $500 without management approval. Laviolette took the money and fled on foot. With the banks closed for Christmas, court heard his next job wasn't until December 27th, when Laviolette showed up at a BMO on Erin Great Drive and told the female teller, "You're going to give me $2,000. After seeing the knife in his jacket sleeve, she handed over $500. "That'll do," he told her. "Merry Christmas." His last job was on December 30th, court heard, when he hit a BMO on Royal York Road. After some casual conversation with the female teller, the prosecutor said his tone turned threatening as he demanded she withdraw $2,000. When she asked for more information, Laviolette told her he was robbing the bank and made hand gestures suggesting he was armed. After she triggered the alarm, he showed the knife, reached over the counter, grabbed $500, and left in a red Mazda. On January 2nd, 2025, a Toronto police detective spotted the suspect's car in a Walmart parking lot, and a plate check showed it was registered to Laviolette. His Ministry of Transportation photo bore a clear likeness to the robber in each of the 5 bank robberies, the Crown said. The sedan was placed under police surveillance, and the hapless robber was arrested as soon as he got in. Laviolette was still wearing the same clothes seen at each of the heists, and his gray toque was located in his vehicle. In his police statement, Buckland Foster said Laviolette expressed regret for the people that were terrified, including that last one. She had some tears in her eyes, and that bothered him a lot. Asked if he agreed with the statement of facts, Laviolette strongly reiterated that he didn't threaten anybody. A sympathetic Superior Court Justice, Peter Bodden, said the bank robber was in the throes of a relapse at the time. but has apologized to everyone. He told him he hopes he's now on the path to redemption. It's in everybody's best interest that you pull yourself together. A sentencing hearing is scheduled for November. That story was Polite Toronto Bank Robber Admits to Holding Up 5 Banks in 10 Days by Michelle Mandel. The next story is GTA Gas Prices Set to Spike Again Wednesday by Ling Hui. After about a week of declining gas prices at the pumps, Toronto area drivers will have to again pay more to fuel up, according to a leading gas expert. Speaking to CP24 Breakfast, Canadians for Affordable Energy President Dan McTeague said the price of regular gas in the GTA would go up by 6 cents a liter on Wednesday, hitting 168.9 cents, while diesel will also go up 12 cents, pushing prices to 220.9 cents per liter. Quote, "There is no doubt that this has been the wildest ride in energy prices we've seen," McTeague said, adding the situation is worse than 2008, referring to the year energy prices peaked following periods of extreme fluctuations in the early aughts due to the U.S. invasion of Iraq. McTeague said while drivers have been used to volatile gas prices since the Iran war began over 5 months ago, this hike is particularly concerning as energy analysts and the markets are beginning to lose hope that a deal between the U.S. and Iran to reopen the Strait of Hormuz is forthcoming. He said the continued closure of the waterway, which serves as a crucial shipping route for oil exports from the Middle East, along with Houthi attacks on cargo ships in the Bab el-Mandeb Strait and the ongoing Russia-Ukraine war, is diminishing the global fuel supply and depleting emergency energy reserves around the world. The most recent downward trend in oil prices began last Thursday, after U.S. President Donald Trump said he held off on ordering a new round of U.S. military strikes on Iran, claiming again that a deal to end fighting in the Middle East was imminent. Signs that the situation was de-escalating virtually evaporated over the weekend after Iran issued a list of demands the U.S. must meet before the Strait of Hormuz would fully reopen. McTeague predicted that the price at the pumps will continue to rise past Wednesday, with prices likely going up 2 to 3 cents a liter, going up every day as analysts and markets are now starting to think, well, maybe the Strait of Hormuz will remain closed. He estimated that the world is facing a shortage of close to 2 million barrels of oil, and that the U.S. Strategic Petroleum Reserve has dropped below 300 million barrels, which he said is below its operational minimum. While the midweek fuel spike is alarming, McTeague said the continued closure of the Strait of Hormuz is also affecting the rising costs of goods made with petrochemicals, all the things we take for granted, and food products. And, of course, the cost of transportation will remain elevated for the balance of 2026 and well into 2027, he added. That story was GTA Gas Prices Set to Spike Again Wednesday by Ling Hui. The next story is Petition to Kick Out U.S. Ambassador Reaches Nearly 30,000 Signatures by Brian Toey. A petition to remove U.S. Ambassador to Canada Pete Hoekstra from the country has reached nearly 30,000 signatures. The online petition, set for presentation in the House of Commons in the fall, says Hoekstra, U.S. President Donald Trump's representative in Ottawa, ought to be declared persona non grata, and the federal government should request his removal as a U.S. ambassador. Green leader Elizabeth May will present the petition, which was launched by a Calgary woman. Accusations. The petition accuses Hoekstra of unduly interfering in Canadian politics and making statements inconsistent with diplomatic protocol. It says he undermined Canada-U.S. relations, characterizing the 2025 federal election as anti-American, and normalizing Trump's threats to annex Canada as the 51st state. Most notably, the petition suggests that he egged on the Alberta separatist movement. Specifically, the petition alleges representatives of the Alberta Prosperity Project, an independence movement, met with U.S. State Department officials 3 times between April 2025 and January, and that Hoekstra said he had no knowledge of those meetings. The petition also attempts to link Hoekstra to a Michigan-based voter identification app used by another Alberta sovereignty group called the Centurion Project. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Toronto Sun on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Hoekstra, a vocal ambassador. It's true that Hoekstra has voiced his opinion over a number of issues that could affect Canada-U.S. relations, though whether or not such opinions undermine them could be debated. He's specifically called out Canadian bans on American liquor, calling them kind of backwards and a major irritant in the U.S.-Canada trade deal talks. Quote, "That's kind of backwards to me, and if Canadians can explain that logic to me, I can't understand it. We buy 93% of your exports and you ban ours," Hoekstra told Michael LeBlanc and Sylvain Charlebois on the Food Professor podcast, adding the only 2 provinces that don't ban U.S. booze are Alberta and Saskatchewan. Does this petition have legs? The U.S. Embassy told media it was aware of the petition, but didn't comment any further. A persona non grata declaration allows a government, according to the UN's Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations, to strip diplomatic immunity from an individual and force them to leave the country. Canada has done so in the past, most recently with Chinese and Indian officials over allegations of foreign interference. Chinese diplomat Zhao Wei was given the boot in 2023 after an intelligence report said he targeted MP Michael Chong by investigating family members living in Hong Kong. The next year, Canada kicked out 6 Indian diplomats and consular officials after the RCMP alleged agents of India's government targeted Canadian citizens. That campaign, police said, was linked to the murder of Sikh activist Hardeep Singh Nijjar in Surrey, BC, allegedly at the behest of Indian gangster Lawrence Bishnoi, according to U.S. authorities. That story was "Petition to Kick Out U.S. Ambassador Reaches Nearly 30,000 Signatures" by Brian Toey. The next story is "Ontario Making Steady Progress Against Wildfires" by Alan S. Hale. Toronto. Ontario is making steady progress in dealing with one of the most severe wildfire seasons the province has ever seen, say the ministers in charge of the government's response to the fires. While we are not in the clear yet here in Ontario, we are confident that we have the crews and the aircraft that we need to get the job done, said Natural Resources Minister Mike Harris Jr. The massive fire in northwestern Ontario, designated Thunder Bay 36, has burned 3,500 square kilometers, Harris said, and now holds the record for the largest forest fire in Ontario history. Thunder Bay 36 is still classified by the Ministry of Natural Resources, or MNR, as, quote, "not under control." But it is starting to shrink, Harris said. It has shrunk by almost 16,000 hectares at this point, which is really good. The firefighting teams have done a lot of work to contain the north and eastern boundaries of it, Harris said. Harris noted that 84 more fires have been extinguished since the last public update at the end of July, on top of the 80 fires put out previously. More fires are still starting, so the overall number is declining more slowly. Here is where things stand overall. There are 152 wildfires still burning in Ontario, down from 159 at the end of July. 12 are not under control, down from 30. 6 are being held within their current boundaries, down from 7. 8 are under control, up from 7. The rest are under observation, but are being allowed to burn naturally, as many are quite small. Of the 14 communities evacuated this summer, 6 have returned home, and 1 is in the process of returning. This is up from 2 communities allowed to return home at the end of last month. 1,150 evacuees are being housed in host communities around Ontario, down from 2,000. With progress being made in Ontario, firefighters who arrived from other jurisdictions such as Mexico, Manitoba, New Brunswick, Prince Edward Island, Quebec, Nova Scotia, and Newfoundland are expected to start leaving. Some are heading to British Columbia, where the wildfire situation continues to worsen. Over the coming days and weeks, Ontario will likely see some of our partners start to reposition some of their resources back to their home regions, Harris said. We have had some who have gone back home already. Those from Alberta, in particular, have already been repositioned to British Columbia. The province's wildfire and evacuation response has been heavily criticized by First Nations, which makes up 85% of the evacuated communities, and have also called for a public inquiry into what happened. Harris and MNR's slow response to fires near some First Nations communities was because so many fires were started at once by a lightning storm that the government couldn't keep up with them all. If First Nations sees fires, he said, they should evacuate on their own and not wait for the MNR or the government to come and say, "You better get out." Indigenous Affairs Minister Greg Rickford said he and other members of Cabinet have redoubled our efforts to stay in touch with First Nations communities and territorial organizations. First Nations feedback will also be taken into account during the regular review of the fire season this fall. There have been suggestions brought to us by First Nations leadership that will be part of those considerations, Rickford said. That story was Ontario Making Steady Progress Against Wildfires by Alan Hale. The next story is former Montreal Anti-Racism Commissioner sues CIJA over alleged Hitler comparison by Abby McLaughlin. Montreal's former Anti-Racism Commissioner, Botra Manai, is suing a prominent Jewish advocacy group, alleging it published a visual montage comparing her to Adolf Hitler. The alleged comparison is part of what Manai claims was a nearly 3-year campaign by the Center for Israel and Jewish Affairs, or CIJA, to discredit her, undermine her professional credibility, and get her fired from the city of Montreal. She is seeking $125,000 in damages in a lawsuit filed in Quebec Superior Court in Montreal. At the center of the claim is a CIJA publication from around June 11, 2025. The lawsuit alleges the organization published a message questioning Manai's competence and circulated a visual montage comparing her to Adolf Hitler. Manai argues the alleged comparison associated her with a figure responsible for the genocide of Jews and emblematic of anti-Semitism, constituting an extreme attack on her honor and dignity. The publication is identified as an exhibit in the lawsuit, but the Gazette has not seen it. Manai is seeking $100,000 in moral damages for the alleged harm caused her and a further $25,000 in punitive damages. None of the allegations have been tested in court. The lawsuit portrays the alleged montage as one episode in a much longer and increasingly bitter dispute between CIJA and Manai over her response to anti-Semitism in Montreal. Menai was appointed the city's commissioner for the fight against racism and systemic discrimination in 2021. Her relationship with CIJA deteriorated following the Hamas attack on Israel on October 7, 2023, and the ensuing war in Gaza. CIJA called for her resignation that November, accusing Menai of failing to adequately denounce anti-Semitic attacks on Jewish institutions in Montreal while speaking publicly about the Israel-Hamas war. The Gazette reported at the time that Menai had attended at least one pro-Palestinian demonstration where radical Imam Adil Charakawi called for the extermination of Zionist aggressors. Menai failed to publicly condemn the remarks even as other officials, including former Premier François Legault, denounced them. Then Mayor Valérie Plante said at the time that she had reminded Menai of her duty of discretion and told her to meet with the communities affected by the conflict. The city later told the Gazette that Menai was meeting representatives of Montreal's Jewish and Muslim communities to strengthen bonds of trust, and was committed to listening to and hearing all voices. Menai alleges CIJA and its representatives repeatedly intervened publicly throughout 2024 and 2025, creating what she describes as a narrative that she was failing in the performance of her duties and incapable of fulfilling her mandate. The filing points to a December 2023 CIJA publication that allegedly described Menai as, quote, complicit by refusing to speak out against hate. Menai argues that language associated her with a form of moral complicity in hatred and constituted a serious accusation capable of significantly damaging her reputation. Her lawyers characterize CIJA's actions as, quote, a public, repeated, and sustained campaign of harassment intended to discredit Menai, undermine her professional credibility, and obtain her dismissal. That's all the time we have for this story, which was former Montreal Anti-Racism Commissioner sues CIJA over alleged Hitler comparison, by Abby McLaughlin. You've been listening to a reading of articles and features from the August 11th issue of the Toronto Sun. Your reader has been Melanie Guralnick. Thank you for listening.